Welcome everyone to another edition of the Friday Night Mega Mirror Special. This week we are talking to an incredibly talented creator. A man whose talent is clearly as evident as his intellect. Even without the benefit of a body, this creator can vaporize flerfs with a single thought. That's right folks, today we welcome Dead Kennedy in Space. So if you've been wondering who the creator behind the head in a jar is and what he's all about, then this mega mirror is the one you wouldn't want to miss. So grab your drinks and pull up a seat, because this is going to be a fantastic show when we come back. And we're back. For those of you just joining us, today we're featuring the creator with talent to match his intellect, Mr. Dead Kennedy in Space. It's going to be an awesome show tonight, so let's bring him on. Hello, Dead Kennedy in Space, and welcome. Thanks for being here with us today.
Hello. Thank you so very much for having me. I very much appreciate it.
I've been waiting for a chance to finally have you on the show, and I'm really thrilled you could join us. I guess I should begin by asking my usual opening question. How did you get started on YouTube, and what is your channel all about?
Well, I actually started with a different channel that I shared with a few friends. We did entertainment videos like Let's Plays and a review series of all the Godzilla movies. After a while, though, I discovered Flat Earth through the NASA Facebook page, which is just a disaster when it comes to the comment sections. I did a handful of debunks on the group channel, but then I got an idea from my doctor during an appointment for my mental health. She was mentioning that I'm very well spoken and that I should use my voice to my advantage. A few days later, I had concocted the idea for my channel: Space Education and Conspiracy Debunks. Stop the spread of stupid while simultaneously teaching people something.
It's very interesting how so many of us in this community got started for the same basic reasons, yet each of us has a unique trigger that got the whole journey started. I must say, though, that you have quite an interesting persona in the form of a head in a jar. How did that idea come about, and what made you finally decide to go with it?
Well, the head in the jar came up surprisingly organically, actually. If you notice, my first two videos don't actually use that avatar, and it wasn't originally intended to be a representation of myself. The idea was to just combine a few concepts, making the avatar a literal globehead NPC, attempting to basically just mock flat earthers. But eventually I needed a kind of standard backdrop to default to when reference images weren't needed. It became implied that the floating head was me, so I just ran with it. When it comes to the jar, that was actually added by the shills. While constructing our backdrop, people were struggling to find a way to seat a disembodied head at our table. Eventually someone, I believe it was Sarcastic Barman, came up with the idea to stick the head in a Futurama-style jar, and quite frankly, I loved it.
Personally, I really like the avatar, and it really seems to fit the channel you have built. At this point, I would like to shift gears a bit and give the audience a look at the first video I ever saw on your channel. It's the one that made me sub to the channel immediately. Let's have a look.
This stuff really never ends. I've been studying the flat earth theory for going on 2 years now, and at this point, I understand it almost exclusively as a mental disorder comprised of cognitive dissonance and the Dunning-Kruger effect. Here's a few more symptoms of that disorder. Again, no particular order. Number 1. Demanding real photos. I've been trying, unsuccessfully, to get another flat earther to debate me for a long time. I did this once before, but it was unmoderated, and it quickly descended into a shouting match.
What happened to your Canadian manners? Aren't you sorry?
Listen to you.
Listen to you. Oh, yeah, we're offended. Oh, listen to you.
Your panties are all twisted around.
The shit show.
No, you're sitting here going, next, like a fucking bird.
Because I just fucking destroyed you. Next.
You didn't do shit. Oh,
they photoshopped.
I know about that. I know about that. I can explain that as well, folks. Would you like me to explain that?
Yeah, yes, folks, explain it.
It's very simple.
Your whopping audience of 10, folks.
Shut
your
up.
Whopping audience of 10. Who are you talking to?
I'm talking to your audience, asshole. Yeesh. This time, I wanted to approach things with a little more civility, but it would seem that's not to be. Every single one of them has quickly turned into a coward and started making excuses to refuse the debate. Some claim it's a waste of time, while they simultaneously spam NASA's Facebook page with flat Earth memes. Some say they don't need to debate me because they know the Earth is flat, and that's someone too brainwashed to get through to. But the latest excuse really, honestly, kinda pissed me off. Okay, the cult puppet said, I'll debate you, but only if you can answer one question. Can you show me a real photo of the Earth in space? The problem here is that this is completely pointless. As you can plainly see, I asked her if she wanted to debate the shape of the Earth. I did not ask her if she wanted to debate the legitimacy of NASA photographs. Not only is that a long-winded subject, numerous NASA images are in fact not photos and not advertised as such and therefore do contain editing work, but it doesn't matter. No matter what I show her, she would say that it's fake. She won't provide any explanation of why it's fake, she'll just say it is, and so the whole argument falls flat there. Pun definitely intended. This is why, when I debate with flat earthers, I don't talk about NASA. I don't talk about any of the space agencies. They assume everything from these agencies is being faked, so why would I? Instead, I ask them to debate about the shape of the Earth, and use their own proofs and arguments to form a cohesive theory. I can do that. I can mathematically verify the size and distance of the sun. I can show long exposure photographs that clearly show the stars rotating around fixed points at our north and south poles, clearly demonstrating a spinning ball. I can refer to Slyce Parkane's recreation of the Eratosthenes experiment from 240 BC, who used nothing more than sticks and shadows to demonstrate that the Earth is a ball. None of these have to do with NASA, so I don't talk about them or their photos. It's a waste of time. Number 2. Posting memes. This is honestly just baffling to me. A lot of the cult puppets who frequent the Facebook pages for NASA and the ISS tend to comment using image memes. I think the idea is to express a broad idea very simply, so that it's easier for the reader to absorb, and while that makes sense, they're also blatantly stupid and require about 5 seconds of thought to debunk. Let's try a few. Really? Really? Felix was in the stratosphere. That's part of the atmosphere. The Earth spins with its atmosphere. Next! Because the sun isn't made of rock, dust, water, and ice. In the words of Maximus,
Next!
This is a classic. These aren't photos, they're composites that are described by NASA as artistic representations. Also, the satellites that took the photos were at different heights, hence different sizes. Hit it, Maximus!
Next!
Well, I sort of just listed a bunch more evidence unrelated to photos. Why don't they get that?
Next!
This one's a little tougher. That looks suspicious, right? There's just one problem. The right side photo isn't from NASA. Flat earthers made it up themselves. Whew, I could do that all day. Number 3. Tying the globe model to NASA. This is a problem that I think is really indicative of flat earthism as a psychological illness. The brainwashing strategies employed by flat earth videos, outright lies and misconceptions from Eric Dubay and Mark Sargent, Dunning-Kruger from Odd Reality and Jeranism, cause a person to associate the globe with NASA. NASA taught you to believe in the ball. NASA told you there's satellites in space. NASA told you we went to the moon. You're just a NASA believer. Do your research. Here's the problem. That just plain isn't true. I've already mentioned that the first people to learn, scientifically, where planetary bodies were and what the Earth was shaped like were Greek astronomers. Eratosthenes in 240 BC, Aristarchus around the same time. If you go even further back, even the ancient Sumerians seemed to believe in deities that came from other planets, which would suggest that they thought Earth was a planet too, though I will admit they never put forth a spherical model. NASA didn't invent the globe. That's not how this went. I could probably do an entire video on the history of astronomy, and maybe I will, but suffice to say for now, NASA wasn't founded in 240 BC. Number 4. Asking where the stars are. The oldest and most tiring question from flat earthers. They see photos of space or photos from the Apollo missions, and every time they ask why they can't see any stars. Even after they've been told why, they seem to completely disregard it, laugh off the response, and then appear later and repeat the same damn question. It's really annoying, honestly. So this is very simple. There's a thing called exposure settings. Cameras take photos by exposing the film, or the image sensor, to light for a period of time. Depending on what you want to capture, you need to change that amount of time. I can sum this whole thing up using 2 simple photos. Number 1, a photo of the moon, seen from Earth. Don't tell me it's fake, you've seen the damn moon up there too. This was taken with a short exposure setting, meaning a short amount of time for light exposure. As a result, the brightest object in the frame, the moon, is the only one visible because it's the only one that had time to let any light in. Number 2, same moon, same night, same sky. This was taken with a long exposure setting, so more time, more light. As a result, the small amount of light from the stars actually is visible, but washing out the entire photo is the much brighter moon. This is why you don't see stars in most photos and videos. End of story. Number 5. Being a douche. Flat earthers have attitude. And no, not like a sassy independent black woman.
What's another word that means happy threatening?
The word he's looking for is sassy.
You better pray you don't find it.
Like an angry, stupid, closed-minded, sarcastic douche.
Here he is, the biggest douche of the universe, in all the galaxies.
When you talk to them, they call you names. They tell you you're brainwashed. They laugh and post emojis and memes like they're teenagers. They tell you that you failed when you did nothing of the sort. This, I think, is part of the disorder thing. It's like a mental defense mechanism to lash out against people who want to ask questions or have a rational conversation. It's very hostile and makes them generally unlikable. It's sort of a nauseating thing to have a conversation with a flat earther. It's sort of like talking to a bully. Number 6. Comparing cell phones to NASA infrastructure. I think this comes back to Dunning-Kruger. People don't seem to understand the vast amounts of effort made to do the things NASA does, and they wind up saying things like this. That's awesome. In my house, the Wi-Fi zone is not good, but we can receive a pic from Mars. Amazing. And then there's an emoji that appears to be a reference to Pinocchio, implying, well, you know. There's that douchery again. But look, here's me, explaining why it's a rather silly question. Do you pay millions of dollars for your Wi-Fi? The Mars InSight mission cost a total of $828 million US. When you're ready to foot that staggering cell phone bill, then we can start comparing your gadgets to NASA tech. Number 7. Whining about the woes of the world. This is another part of Dunning-Kruger and cognitive bias that you see in a lot of Facebook comments. People will point out that children are starving in Africa, or gangs are running whole slums in Brazil, and then say, but we can get a pretty space picture, so it's okay, I guess. Yes, there is sadness in the world. I feel for those who are suffering, I really do. I'm a pretty empathetic person, believe me. But the thing is, it isn't NASA's job to fund international aid efforts. As a matter of fact, foreign aid gets more funding than NASA does, albeit only a little more. Yes, people are suffering everywhere, but I think it's worth noting that the technologies that have been developed by NASA surely have helped those who are suffering. Here's a quick rundown of just a few. Artificial limbs have benefited from technology developed by NASA for robotics and shock absorption. Safety grooving on highways was developed for use on wet runways. The first A stands for aeronautics, you know, and was originally developed at Langley Research Center. Goodyear developed a fibrous material for NASA to use in parachutes on Mars, and this led to a new radial tire with a tread life 10,000 times greater than conventional radials. A company called Thiokol Propulsion uses NASA rocket fuel to safely destroy landmines. The Apollo heat shield was coated with a material that eventually led to a steel coating devised to make high-rise buildings safer. Enriched baby food contains a nutritional ingredient that traces its existence to NASA-sponsored research into algae as a recycling agent. I'm going to be coming back to that whole mental disorder thing. It's pretty clear to me now that that's exactly what the hell is going on here. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you like this video, like it. If you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel, which is Dead Kennedy in Space. Thank you, and I'm out.
Over the next hill, beyond the horizon.
Find your place in space. Space is vast and unexplored. There's a lot of work to do.
That was a fabulous video. You really did nail it with that one. I think what I like the most about that video is how you presented it. You have a very well thought out and clear approach in all your videos. How long does it usually take you to create your videos?
Well, it depends on the subject, but honestly, relatively quickly. I've been a writer since my early teens, and not to toot my own horn, I'm pretty good at nailing down basic essay format. So usually what I'll do is I'll figure out a topic I want to work on, and let it bounce around in my brain for a couple of days while I work out the basic structure of the script. Once I've got the hook, usually an analogy of some kind to compare the subject to, I start writing. As far as research goes, I follow a lot of space agencies as well as amateur space enthusiasts like myself, and they've frequently done portions of the work for me. I'll watch or read their work and figure out a way to simplify it and reword it in my own terms so that it can be understood by a layman. As far as editing goes, I can record a script in a few minutes, and I have templates for certain aspects of the videos that I can speed up the process. The most difficult part tends to be keeping the pacing tight and finding appropriate visual references to explain things to the audience.
Well, I think the quality and intelligence that goes into every video you make is clearly evident. I especially like your series on Flat Earth, a Mental Illness. Let's give the viewers a look at the very first video from that series.
The human mind is a strange and funny thing, isn't it? I've mentioned in previous videos that I feel like being a flat earther is akin to having a mental disorder, and today I'd like to start going further into that theory. Disclaimer: I understand that telling people they have a mental illness can be seen as an insult. As someone who suffers from depression and anxiety, trust me, I am not unsympathetic when it comes to mental health issues. What I'm trying to say here is merely that this movement is in fact the result of the weird inner workings of our own brains, and it can be treated, and probably reversed. Now, I'd like to break this disorder down piece by piece, beginning with cause. What causes one to develop flat earthism? Well, first, one needs to have certain pre-existing personality traits. You need to be a skeptic, like myself. That is to say, when someone comes to you with a theory or idea that sounds in any way unbelievable, and sometimes even if it sounds completely believable, you will not accept it until you have taken a closer examination of available evidence. I believe this is a good thing, except when it's combined with the second personality trait, the Dunning-Kruger effect. I went over this in another video, which I'll link below, but let's do a quick recap. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias caused by an internal lack of self-awareness. In simpler terms, people of low ability believe themselves to be smarter than they actually are because they are unable to analyze their own level of competence. What this results in is a kind of arrogant, self-absorbed person who believes they've found some measure of truth in their life, and because it is truth, it cannot be debunked. But what is the catalyst that sparks the disorder itself? Well, in a nutshell, it's YouTube. The videos on this site have a severe problem when it comes to the spread of ideas. One does not need credentials to make a YouTube video. Look at me, one barely needs to know how to edit. And additionally, the spread of ideas on YouTube does not occur through conversation, as it should. It instead comes through a one-sided broadcast, in which a person is allowed to make claims without being questioned or corrected at any point. Because of this, it's very easy to give off the illusion of intelligence and expertise, when in fact you have none. And this leads me to flat earth channels. Try and put yourself in the mind of a skeptic, someone who doesn't take anything at face value, and imagine that you are presented with a video like this.
200 Proofs Earth is Not a Spinning Ball by Eric Dubay. 1. The horizon always appears perfectly flat 360 degrees around the observer regardless of altitude. All amateur balloon, rocket, plane, and drone footage show a completely flat horizon over 20 plus miles high.
Already, this sounds like a remarkable claim, but at face value, it's verified by our own senses. It is true that, when simply observing our surroundings, the Earth does appear quite flat. However, when Dubé goes on to say that all footage at any altitude backs up this claim, he is no longer telling the truth. He has quickly switched from a verifiable fact, the Earth looks flat from the ground, to something far less credible in the same sentence. It's easy to see how someone might be duped by this kind of quick-thinking con man.
So here we go. 5 facts about the Earth they didn't teach us in school. Number 5. The motion and blazing speed of the Earth. The actual motion, speed, and unbelievable movement of the Earth in the accepted heliocentric model of the solar system says we are spinning at 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. Now that's only 1 revolution per day, but we're also zooming 66,000 miles per hour around the Sun. But how about the entire Milky Way?
Which includes the Earth and the Sun, as together we are racing around the Great Attractor at 2.2 million miles per hour. That's 52,800,000 miles per day and 19,272,000,000 miles per year. Now this Great Attractor we orbit is quite far. It's somewhere between 881 quintillion, 850 quadrillion miles and 1/6 trillion, 469 quintillion, 750 quadrillion miles away. Star Polaris remains in the same spot.
And no one has ever felt anything.
Oh, Jeranism. This guy is filled with the most deceitful tactics one can think of. To start off with, the video title is designed to intrigue a skeptic. Fact means verifiable, and school is generally a place shunned by skeptics. Most people are well aware that you are not taught everything in school, so this draws you in. Next, he throws a ton of information at you, hence the fast forwarding. However, despite all of this entirely accurate information, the conclusion he draws is completely wrong. We don't perceive speed, we perceive acceleration. It's the same reason that when driving 80 kilometers an hour, you're not consistently slammed back into your seat once you get up to speed.
It's the same reason when you're driving in your car on the freeway and there's a bee in your car, you don't go, oh my God, an 80-mile-an-hour bee. How is it keeping 90, 95? How is it keeping up? This is the fastest bee in the world.
However, Jeranism has confused these two and then infused it into his narrative, and as a result, his followers believe an unintentional lie.
But whether we like it or not, NASA and all the other space agencies are lying to the world. They're lying to you. They're lying to your kids. We've caught NASA too many times to count at this point.
Odd Reality is a particularly good speaker. He knows how to tug at heartstrings and push his listeners in the direction he's already headed. This is the key point. Odd isn't trying to present ideas or ask questions to provoke his listeners into thinking critically. He is instead slowly indoctrinating them to think the way that he does, to ask the same questions he does, to use the same biases he does. Throughout this video, he leans heavily on the "you're being lied to" cane, trying to invoke a sense of injustice and truth-seeking. But he's not seeking truth. He's recruiting followers. He's brainwashing, like a cult leader. This is the first step in acquiring the disorder of flat earthism. You need to be skeptical, but a little gullible, and ultimately, not very smart. In the next video, I'll go more into the behaviors and symptoms of this disorder, and what happens when you fall too far down the rabbit hole. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you like this video, like it. If you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel, which is Dead Kennedy in Space. Thank you, and I'm out.
Over the next hill, beyond the horizon.
Find your place in space. Space is vast and unexplored. There's a lot of work to do.
That was fantastic. Very well written and, as always, wonderfully presented. Can you give us a bit of insight into what it took to produce that video with regard to research and production?
Well, in regards to research, it was honestly just a lot of people watching. I guess I have a knack for analyzing human behavior, and I started to notice some patterns in flat earth thinking. They're all paranoid, they're all full of hostility, and they all seem to have a desire to be privy to secret information. It occurred to me one day, this seems like the behavior of maybe a schizophrenic or someone with dementia. Eventually I drew enough parallels that I started planning a series, originally only intended to be 3 parts long, look how long that lasted, and I went to town. A possible other factor is the fact that I myself suffer from mental illness, namely depression and mild anxiety, and it may very well be the case that knowing the problems with my own behavior helps me recognize problems with that of others.
I absolutely love that whole series of videos, and I'm sure the viewers would love to see another series like that, as I would. Any plans for one?
I mean, it's entirely possible. The angle I tend to go for is behavioral and psychological more than hard science anyway, so I'm sure I can expand the topic outside of Flat Earth and more into general conspiracy theorists. Since I like to watch and listen to people to see how they react to things, I can pretty much guarantee my videos will continue to incorporate that in some way or another.
That's great. Whatever you plan on putting out in the future, I will look forward to it. But I think the reason most people love your channel is because you are always so well-spoken and calm in your delivery. But that isn't always the case, is it? What is it that can drive you to lose your cool the most?
I do try to stay calm, yeah. As much as I love the saltiness of someone like Red's Rhetoric or FTFE, it's just not me. I appreciate discourse, and I like to converse especially with people I disagree with. So the biggest thing, and I know we're going to come back to this, is when that process of discourse breaks down. That and when they pull the Challenger hoax card. I hate that conspiracy with a passion.
I suppose most of us in the community lose it for the same reasons. Let's have a look at your most recent loss of patience with the Flat Earthers.
Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand.
Well, it looks like I have some new subscribers to address. A huge thank you to everyone who's come over from Dr. Bob's channel. I really appreciate it. I'll do my best not to disappoint you all. So, I have to admit, I am somewhat wrapping things up when it comes to FE videos. I've said practically everything I can at this point, and while I'll still do debunks of specific content creators as they come out, I have no plans to continue the mental illness series or anything like that. There's only so many times you can explain the globe to these fools before you start to get a little tired. But as long as the stupid lives, I will continue to fight it. So, with that being said, I'd like to show a different side of myself when it comes to dealing with flerfs. I suspect that a portion of the reason people enjoy my content is due to my calm and collected delivery. I tend not to get angry or go off insulting flerfs, and that's because, not to pat my own back, I have an extraordinary amount of patience. I can stay polite in the face of stupid, even in the face of arrogance and rudeness. But everyone has their limits. Today, I'd like to show you what happens when I reach mine, which, to my knowledge, has only occurred on 2 occasions. The first incident occurred before I started this channel. I discovered the FE nonsense via NASA's Facebook page, which is just rife with comments of space is fake and NASA lies and CGI and yada yada yada. Shortly thereafter, I began discovering the debate community, in particular the debates between FE proponents and debunkers. As a result, I began a new strategy on NASA's page. Whenever I encountered these people, I would politely ask if they wanted to have a debate surrounding the subject. Eventually, one of them agreed, and after only about 2 weeks of absolute buffoonery, we managed to have a Skype conversation together. It didn't go well, mostly because about 20 minutes into the debate, I called FE crap, and my opponent, Maximus Fake Namius, flew off the rails. The debate became a mess of shouting, over-talking, and ad hominem attacks, and eventually, I reached my breaking point. Let's sit back and have a listen, shall we?
No, I have eyes. I can look.
You can't just look at it and say it looks like CGI.
The blue marble photos have evidence of them using Photoshop's stamp tool in it.
Oh,
they
yeah, I know about that. I can explain that as well, folks. Would you like me to explain that?
Yeah, yes, folks,
yeah, it's
explain
very
it.
simple. It's very simple. You're talking
your
about...
whopping audience of 10 folks?
Shut
your
up.
Whopping audience of 10? Who are you talking to?
Talking to your audience, asshole.
6.5 hours later.
No, they did that because they can't get past low Earth orbit. They did that because they have to do it. That's what NASA even said. It's a composite image. It has to be.
Yes.
It is photoshopped. It has to be.
Yes.
It is a Photoshop.
Yes.
They've
Classic
openly
NASA
admitted
quote
it.
taken out of context.
It is not taken out of context.
It
it's in the context of the debate we're having right now, Kevin.
It is in reference
what planet
to one
are you
photo.
on?
It is
A
in reference
flat
to...
one. That's
Shut
the
up!
one.
It is in reference to one photo, and you are applying it to every NASA photo ever. It is taken out of context.
1 eternity later.
You're insane. Every single one of those photos has different purposes, was captured with different imagery, used to highlight different sections of the Earth. Of course they're going to look different.
Because they
all
can't
have a
stick a
different
real
purpose.
camera out
Stop
there.
interrupting me! Stop interrupting me!
No,
I am
they
not
can't
done.
stick a real
I am
camera
not done.
out there.
Shut up!
Good.
I am not done.
Yo, look who's flooping out now and losing their mind. Good. Let the hate flow, Kevin. I love it. You're acting like you do on the NASA page.
Are you done interrupting
Good.
me?
Good.
Are you done interrupting me? Whew, that was a fun time. So I'd like you to take notice of why I lost my cool. I only became aggressive after the conversation devolved into madness. Once discourse had dissolved, it became a shouting match, and that's when I snapped. I believe firmly that a fundamental pillar of our society, of all societies, is discourse. The exchange of information and ideas is how we determine what is right and what is wrong, what is true and what is false. When that breaks down, we become animals. We become less than human. The second incident occurred much more recently. While participating in a live stream with my good friends on World Model Feud's channel, we eventually realized that we had a flerf among us. Being polite, cordial, and reasonable people, we gave him a link to the meet and decided to ask him a few questions. Hope your popcorn's still warm.
Expand on your first point. When you're saying, did I blindly accept the bullshit, are you unaware of the concept of showing your work?
I do show my work. I have videos on my channel that prove my work.
That's my point, though, is that you don't blindly accept the education program. You show your work you show your work to show that it's accurate.
No. In order to advance to the next level in school, you have to regurgitate what has been taught to you.
Except you don't. You have to show how what you've been... No. Don't fucking give me attitude already, buddy. You can relax a bit.
Oh, fuck. You're sitting there denying
you can relax
the plain fucking truth, bud.
You can relax a little. What I am saying to you is showing your...
You can be honest.
Shut up and let me finish.
Okay, hold on. I'm jumping in here. I'm jumping in here. Let Dead Kennedy in space finish. He has not had equal time that you had. Dead Kennedy, it's your turn.
You know, I gotta say, what is it with flat earthers and being completely incapable of having a humane conversation with another human being? What is wrong with you?
Because y'all ain't fucking honest.
Shut
You sit there and lie.
Why don't
you just ask me a fucking question, you... Oh, man.
No, it was rhetorical. It's called a rhetorical question, and it requires no answer.
Yeah, hold on.
It's a basic means of communication. Please learn English.
2,000 years later.
Oh, I'd like to have an honest discussion.
Let me just say this. When I'm talking about showing your work, let me give an example. So, if the teacher tells you 1 + 1 = 2, is that right? You have to then show... Hang on. You have to show Jesus Christ.
The math.
Hold on.
What is wrong with you?
We're talking about science, not fucking math.
Matthias, hold on.
Man.
Hey.
Jesus, the guy finished one sentence.
Okay, enough. I've got this. Now, Matthias, you have to let Kevin respond, even if you don't agree. I gave you equal time on the floor. Kevin gets it too, okay? Even if you don't agree, you got to let him finish, dude, okay? Please? Okay? Now, Kevin, finish. Kevin, finish.
Let him red herring the math.
It doesn't matter if you agree or not. Let him finish and you can respond, okay? Kevin, go ahead.
Good.
Kevin, go ahead.
Good.
Fucking unbelievable. All right. So,
Yeah, it is.
when the teacher tells you that 1 plus 1 equals 2, you have to then show that 1 plus 1 equals 2. Every single other thing you are ever taught in school, you have to do the exact same thing with. That is my point. And I would like you to name a single thing where you do not have to do that.
Are you done?
Yeah.
A few inches later.
Go ahead. Floor's yours.
What test did you do whenever you was told about gravity in grade school, probably in the earlier grades, kindergarten, first or second, whatever, what experiment and test did you do to prove it, to show your work, that it was real?
You're still not quite understanding show your work. It doesn't necessarily mean...
Hey,
it
Matthias!
doesn't necessarily mean... Like, is that your ultimate, oh, for fuck's sake, that's just your ultimate counter to anything? That's ridiculous.
You can't even address my fucking question, dude.
He is! Matthias! Matthias!
If you're an
Hey, Matthias, give him the chance to fucking respond, please, okay? Come on. We gave you the floor, give it to him. Let's go. Kevin, you're on.
Like, if you say I'm not answering your question, you can't say that if you never let me finish my statement, dude. Do you understand that? Like, is that getting through to you? It's important to me that that gets through to you, because that's a basic thing about human communication. Now, anyway, what I was saying is, you don't necessarily need to use an experiment or a test to prove something exists, especially if that something is like, say, a mathematical proof, like the law of gravity. You use math to prove it.
Once again, did you notice what made me angry? Only once the proper flow, the natural back and forth of a standard conversation, was broken down. Matthias couldn't listen to another person speak without injecting some level of hatred and vitriol into it. He was so angry and hostile that it became clear he wasn't even listening in the first place. He waited until he heard buzzwords, and then immediately gave a knee-jerk response to them. All he wanted was to yell and complain and call people names. That's not how I operate. Like I said, it's about discourse. We need to be able to talk to each other and listen to each other. That's what separates us from the animals. Communication is integral, and we're lost without it. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel, which is Dead Kennedy in Space. If you want to support me further, consider donating on Patreon or purchasing some of my work through Amazon or Teespring. Thank you, and I'll see you over the curve, Space Cowboys.
Live there, on the mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam, in a vast cosmic arena.
I think that was probably my favorite rant, if you will, that you have done to date, other than the video that shouldn't exist. Well, that's about all the time we have. I would like to thank you for taking the time to do this show. It was awesome having you here. Is there anything you would like to share with our viewers before we close out?
Just my channel, I suppose. We all know Flat Earth is the world's first sinking ship where the rats are staying put, so I'm slowly transitioning toward other conspiracies as well as hard science. In addition to that, I'm always writing, and I have a plan to integrate that into the channel soon as well. In the meantime, buy my ebooks. They're cheap and they help me immensely.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. I'm really looking forward to more incredible content from your channel, and I hope to have an opportunity to speak with you again.
Thank you for having me again. I very much appreciate it. Guys, pay attention to this gentleman and scholar. He is an educator. He has his head on his shoulders, and he's got an important role to play in this community yet. I'm always happy to come back sometime, and I will see you on the next show stream.
And that just about wraps it up for this week. We hope you've enjoyed this week's edition of the Friday Night Mega Mirror Special featuring Dead Kennedy in Space. If you haven't been to his channel yet, please visit at the end of this show. I promise you will come away feeling like it was the best time you have ever spent. Also, please take a moment to like and subscribe if you've enjoyed tonight's show. And remember to hit the bell for notifications of new content as soon as it's posted. If you would like to help to support this channel, please take a look at our Teespring store, where you can get your very own steaming cup of reason, or a cool t-shirt like mine. Thank you for watching. Until the next time, this is Spike signing off. See ya!